Well, hello everyone, and welcome to today's Facebook Live with Magdalena. I'm the founder of Hormones Balance, passionate about helping you rebalance your hormones naturally. And one of the ways of doing so is using quality olive oil. And so this is going to be a call. I'm going to take probably about 30 minutes, and I'm going to do a Q&A at the end. So when you're joining in, just tell us about where you're from and say hello. And post your question, and what I'm then going to do is going to go back to looking at the questions and answer them towards the end. So, you know, what I would love to talk about today about when it comes to olive oil is, first of all, we're going to do some sampling, and it's called the Swirl, Sniff, Slurp, and Swallow technique, the quadruple S, right? So if you are just joining us and you want to find out if your olive oil in the kitchen is real or not, and whether it's of the right kind of freshness, contains the polyphenols that it should contain, then go and grab your bottle of olive oil and a little shot glass. Could be anything like a vodka shot or tequila shot. The whole idea is that you don't want the glass to be too thick because we're going to be warming up the olive oil in your hand and swirling it. You can also use a plastic glass. You know, I've got a couple of other ones, like later I want to show you the color of olive oil, but the bigger ones is it's a little harder to cover. Well, I'm kind of covering, so I guess that's also a possibility to use a glass like this, as long as you can cover it all with your hand, because when we're going to be swirling, you want to be containing the smell within the glass before we taste it. So let's, I'm just going to wait for a few more minutes for more of you to come on, and then we're going to dive into tasting. And so get ready to do this together with me, because then what we're going to do is I would love to hear your experience, like what does your olive oil taste like? And I'm going to be teaching you about it, what does it mean, and why is it important that there is a specific smell to an olive oil. I also want to talk about medicinal benefits of olive oil, and the 7 criteria to use in order to know whether you have good quality olive oil, okay? Also, I want to tell you about, these olive oils have literally just arrived this morning. I got them from the Freshly Pressed Olive Oil Club, and it's like a wine club, right? You join, every quarter you pay a certain amount of money, and then they deliver curated, in this case is oils, not wines, right? And what you discover about olive oil that's so important is the freshness of it. Unlike wine, we do not want to use aged olive oil. We want to use it as fresh as possible. And the fresher it is, the higher content of polyphenols. So on this in just a second. So are you guys ready with your olive oils? Are we ready to start? I want to do the tasting technique first, and then let's talk about the benefits. And hi there, Rachel. The comments are going to come and disappear, so don't think that I'm ignoring you. I'm not. And I've also got my dear assistant, Jean, who is here with us today, and she's going to be posting questions for me later into Skype so that I can see them, make sure that we get all the questions. Are you able to turn on your volume so I can hear you like a whisper? Oh, interesting. Jean, could you let me know if you can hear me okay? Like, what's the sound like? Could you just confirm that and let me know on Skype so that I know, is it just a one-person problem or is it a problem for everyone? So, okay, so it just shows me that the sound is okay on my end, so I'm not sure what's going on. Could you guys let me know? No, there is an issue. Oh, okay. Is good to me. Okay, it's fine. All right, so everybody's saying the sound is good. So, all right. Looks like the microphone is working. It sounds like you are talking in a can. Ooh. Oh, let me just do this. So I think I know what to do. Let me just, audio and video. The echo suppression. The echo suppression is already turned on. Okay, so, you know, you guys, I'm just going to keep going because it's just hard for me to know what is the issue, and figuring it out right now is just going to be a bit of a bummer. So is that bearable, or would you want me to hang up and do this again? I actually tested the audio right before starting, so that's a shame. All right. Sound is fine. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. All right, so does everybody have a bottle of olive oil in front of you? Are you ready to get started with me? So these oils came from the Freshly Pressed Olive Oil Club literally this morning. I told them, was it yesterday or the day before, that I'm gonna be doing a Facebook Live, doing a demo, and they said, wait, we've got a new batch coming out, and so, you know, like with every club, there's like quarterly delivery, so this is the January delivery that people are gonna be getting. So I'm going to be picking up one that is actually from Sicily, and let me just do a little zoom in here. And this olive oil is from a family called Cutrera. So when I was in Sicily over the summer, you know, I asked the club owners, like, hey, can you introduce me to, you know, to the one of the manufacturers, because I really wanted to see whether it's the real deal, right? And they did, and I went to see them, and I was so impressed, not just with the quality of the olive oil, but their love and commitment to making quality oil. So I've learned a lot from them, but also from a lot of other sources, including from Tom Muller, and then I'll talk about him in just a second, because he was the one who uncovered that 70% of olive oil in the United States that's imported is actually fake, or is diluted with vegetables oil that are highly inflammatory. Right, and if you care about your health and your hormones, then we definitely want to keep the inflammation down to as low as possible. So, all right, so you guys are ready? Fanny saying she didn't know there was an expiration date for olive oil. Absolutely. In fact, one of the things that Tom Muller talks about was, you know, he was the guy who, like I said, found out that olive oil is actually fake in America a lot of the time, right? And he said that it's really, like, you really want to consume it within the 3 to 6 months. Anything beyond a year, that's already considered kind of a dead product. So you're not going to poison yourself, but, you know, I don't look at this like this way as in like gonna hurt yourself or not, right? It's about really bringing in as much medicinal value to your life as you can. All right. So is there a link to view this later on? Yes, Karen. So you can just come back in here. When we finish the transmission, the video is always going to be posted here. You can watch this later in case you don't have an olive oil bottle in front of you. All right, so for those of you who are ready, just pick up your glass, and what we're going to be doing, I'm just going to do a little zoom in on my hands. And what we're going to be doing is pouring just a little bit. When I say a little bit, it's probably like, you know, like half an inch, right, of olive oil into your hand. Now, the next thing you're going to do is we're going to be swirling. And what you want to do is you want to close up your hand around the glass so that we are warming up the glass, right? And then close it with the other hand, so like create a lid with your hand, with the other hand. And the whole idea is that we're going to be swirling is the warmth of your hand that's going to be opening up the flavors of this olive oil, okay? And you want to do this for a minute. Now, my glass is fairly thin, so a minute is good enough. You know, like when we did it in Italy, we used plastic cups, and that's perfectly fine too. That even, it's probably better because you warm it up even more. And if you're using a thicker glass, like I have some shot glasses here that are really thick, and then, you know, then you're gonna do probably like for 2 minutes to warm it up. So swirling around, okay, I'm not looking, and make sure you do not take your hand off. That's one of the things. So we're swirling around, opening it all up. Now the next thing we're gonna do, okay, you ready for this? The next thing we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be sniffing. And when you sniff, remember what is the first notes that you are getting? Like, what are you getting out of your olive oil? Okay, so are you ready for this? Now that's what you do, is you put your nose close to the glass and do this. Oh my God, whew, wow. It's, so this olive oil, because it's so fresh, right? I just open up the bottle. It's literally, it feels, you know how in May or so, no, when is it? Like in summer you have like people mowing grass, and that smell, oh my God. So super grassy, it's very, very fresh smell. And the other thing that's coming out for me is, it tastes a little bit of like, you know, when you have a tomato plant, for those of you who grow your own tomatoes, when you buy it from a supermarket, the leaves are gone most of the time. But even if you do, sometimes you touch the vine and there's that smell on your hands, that beautiful fresh smell, tomato smell. That's the smell. So it's the grass and the tomato undertones, and it's so fragrant, you know. So I'm curious, what are you guys getting from your tasting? Like, what's the smell that you're getting? And I can tell you, I'm just gonna close this because it's super fresh. So this is a harvest from December, you guys. So this is European harvest. They just happened in November. They typically harvest the olives and then get them ready for distribution in December. Actually, sorry, no, the harvest was done in December. So yeah, so it's in December, and so that's why you're gonna be getting in January. So very, very fresh olive oil. So I'm going to be talking about the medicinal benefit. I'm also very curious about what you guys are experiencing, like for those of you who have done the swirl. Well, sorry, we haven't finished yet. So the swirling is one thing, okay? Now the second thing is you want to do is we're going to be doing some smelling. So smelling we did, and then the slurping, and then you swallow. So when I'm slurping, I won't be able to talk, but what you're looking for is what are you getting in your mouth, right? And if it's like this kind of a greasy, metallic, stale taste, then you know that this is very much of a rinsed olive oil. What you should be getting is that what you smelled just now in your mouth, like a repetition of that amplified. And then we're gonna swallow, and I'll tell you about it in a second. What you should be getting from swallowing, and I'm curious what are you getting? You don't have to drink a lot of it, just a little tiny bit. Okay, so amplification of what I smelled just now, that grass and tomato, but then when I swallow, it's very peppery. And I will admit that for the longest time, I thought too that if you're having a bit of that scratching behind on your throat, that's a bad sign that olive oil is rancid. Well, actually, turns out that part of the way of knowing that it's a good quality olive oil is when the content of polyphenols is high in the olive oil. This is when you have that peppery, scratchy taste to it. So it's actually a really good thing. And if you really think about it, a lot of times, you know how, especially in Italian cooking, you have olive oil and then you put pepper on top of that. So the combination of pepper and olive oil is very common in Italian cooking, and that's part of the purpose of making it also kind of bitter, is because you want to amplify that bitterness, and that brings it into the food as well. So, all right, so let me just pop over to Facebook and see what you guys are saying in terms of, like, for those of you who have been doing the test with me and what's coming up. And so one of the things I want to tell you about, so let's talk about medicinal benefits of olive oil. Like, what's the big deal about about good quality olive oil? You know, to me, olive oil is really the foundation, the backbone of good cooking. I still remember many years ago when I was still in private practice, I was working with this woman who was in New York, so she was not much of a cook, and she's like, I go out to eat, but I really eat really, really well, and I choose all the organic places, and so when we ran her numbers, her lab work, she had very high inflammation, and I couldn't figure out where this was coming from, because she was gluten-free, she stopped drinking coffee, she slowed down on alcohol, she wasn't as stressed as much as before, and so I couldn't really figure out what it was, and eventually something came upon me, and I said to her, why don't you go to these restaurants and find out what is the olive oil they're using? I know the whole thing is supposed to be organic and da-da-da, but why don't you find out? And long and behold, she went to the back of the kitchen, and they said to her, we are using organic oils. And she's like, well, tell me exactly what you're using. And it turned out they're using canola oil and soy oil the whole time, right? So yeah, so there's a little bit of like storytelling and a little bit of, bullshitting here when you go like, oh, organic food, organic restaurant, but then they are really saving cost on oil because oil is expensive. But and that's explained what was the inflammation coming from, was because she was eating out a lot, and most restaurants do use poor quality oils generally, right? So what's amazing about good quality olive oil is high in polyphenols that I talked about. Polyphenols are these compounds that are highly anti-inflammatory. And when you have an olive oil, for those of you who've tasted it, and said, you know, I don't really taste that bitterness, that is not a good sign, because that's probably either it's been diluted with some other cheap vegetable oils, or it's because that it lost its the polyphenol content disappears, or it reduces over time. One of the cool things that I love about the owner of Press Olive Oil Club is that when he goes shopping for oils, he's super particular about how they harvest it and how they when they press it. So one of the things I've learned when I was in Sicily is they depict the olive oils when they're not fully ripe yet, even though they are cutting down about 30% of their yield. So that's a lot of money if you think about it. I mean, it's a business, right? But they are willing to sacrifice 30% of the yield in order to have less olive oil. But because when you press from a not a fully ripe olive yet, you're getting a much higher content on polyphenols. And that's part of the reason why this is the first oil that I tasted from Cutrera, is that they have won so many different awards, everything from slow food to, you know, all the big restaurant names, which to me that's not really a health definition, but from a lot of other like organic organizations and people who are truly concerned about food quality. They won a lot of awards as well. So you know that this is good stuff. Jean, why don't we post, for those of you who want to check out the offer, so one of the things I've asked them to do is they can give us a special offer. It's about, you can get a bottle for $1. So typically this bottle retails at $39. You can get it for just $1. That includes shipment, and figure it and see whether you like it. If you do, then you can join the full membership. If you don't, just cancel it, and you just had a good bottle of olive oil that you had just tried. So so the other benefits are that good quality olive oil also helps you reduce LDL, which is the bad cholesterol, but it also increases HDL, which is the good cholesterol. And guess what? The good cholesterol is the building block for all your steroid hormones. So DHEA, testosterone, estrogens, progesterone, cortisol gets built off from the raw material called the HDL cholesterol. And olive oil, guess what? Helps to build it up, which is another beautiful and amazing thing. I'm just going to pop over to Facebook Live and see what are the questions that are coming in. Okay, we have a lot of comments. I use grapeseed oil, but I think it goes bad. Yeah, so grapeseed oil gets, I mean, it's not an oil that I would use and consider it healthy by any means. Mine smells mildly grassy. Okay, so that's better than having no smell whatsoever. Hopefully the replay link will be close to captions. Yeah, we'll try to do captions. All right, I can't see all the other comments, and so Jean, maybe if you could just pop over to Skype, like some of the questions that you would want me to answer. Oh, so let's talk about the 7 criteria of selecting olive oil. So some of you might want to join the club because it's easy. Like honestly, like I have no time to be going around town looking for the best olive oil, right? I just want to get the best thing, and every quarter they ship it to me. I'm a full member now as well, and cool thing is that you get these. So he travels, first of all, the founder of the club travels the world to get the freshest olive oil, right? Because not always, in Europe, they only have 2 seasons a year. So what do you do for the rest of the year? So he goes to Australia, he goes to Chile and Argentina to source it there. It also comes with this booklet. I actually haven't even opened it yet. And it tells you, it's like a newsletter. And the newsletter tells you the full stories about medicinal benefits of the olive oil. They always focus on something different, some new research. It gives you recipes, and it gives you the stories behind every one of these farmers. And mind you, these farms are small, operated, most of the time family-owned operations that truly deeply care, take a lot of pride in their food, and this is not supporting any corporate interest here. So this is part of the reason why I love it, and the storytelling is just absolutely beautiful. So let's talk about the criteria. If you're on our mailing list, I emailed saying that we're going to be going through the criteria. I also wrote an article about it. And some people email us saying, could you send us a list of oils that subscribe to these 7 criteria? Well, there's like over 2,000 brands in America, and so I wouldn't have the resources to do that. But this is the reason why I'm giving you the framework, the 7 criteria, so you can go and evaluate it. I'm also going to give you a couple of brands that I have found to be okay, but it's not the freshest olive oil, but they're not, at least we know they're not diluted. So let me pop over to my cheat sheet here, and you know, the first criteria that you really want to look at is the price point. A good olive oil, I mean, you can get a bottle like this for $7, $8, and I would advise you not to do that because that's really fishy. A good olive oil will cost anything from $20 upwards, okay? And this is not even the olive oil that is like super freshly pressed, it's just not diluted with anything. These guys retail for $39 because they are so fresh. Their commitment from the club is from the time they're pressed to the time you get it is no more than 3 months, which is pretty impressive. The smell and the taste. So you don't remember how at the beginning of the video I mentioned Tom Mueller? That's how he discovered that something fishy was going on in the olive oil world in America. And it wasn't that he sent it to the lab because he had a suspicion. No, he is an American journalist who spends a lot of time in Italy, and he loves Italian food, and olive oil was one of his big passions. And when he came to the US, he started feeling like a lot of the time there was something wrong about that. Like the olive oil in the US didn't smell the same, didn't taste the same as in Italy. And so he, so really what revealed it was the test that we did at the beginning of this video, the Swirl-Sniff-Slurp-Swallow, right, test. And that's when he realized that, and that's when he only went to the lab, started testing. It turns out that the 70% of olive oil sold in America is diluted with cheap vegetable oils, right? So not only is it, doesn't have all the polyphenols, but it's actually kind of harmful because these vegetable oils, if you follow me for a while, you know that vegetable oils are really inflammatory, and that's what was causing the inflammation, like for example in the client I was telling you about in New York. So always remember, very pungent taste that we want the grassy, we want that little scratch at the back of the throat, and pungent is good, okay? Now freshness, that's what I said. You know, good olive oils will tell you when the harvest, when it was pressed, not just the best date by, because manufacturers can put a date 3 years from now, okay? And because that's a regulation by, say, the FDA. But, you know, you might be end up consuming a 3-year-old bottle, right? So really a good olive oil manufacturer would always put what's the harvest date, and then when is the best buy, because that's the law requirement. So from there, you know, so for example, these ones were pressed in December, and so and then you're gonna be getting that. For those of you who are joining the club, you're gonna be doing it in January. In case I forgot, Jean, could you post the link for how to join the club for those of you who wanna check out the page? So the other one is labeling. There's a couple of things you definitely wanna see. You wanna see extra virgin olive oil, that's a given, right? All these names like olive oil light and pressed in Italy, or you know, Italian bottled or whatever, those are all BS names. Like, do not fall for these, because this is just a marketing ploy to create an illusion that it's a good product. It doesn't have to be. When it comes to certifications, what I have found that, well, in Italian olive oils always will have the DOP labeling. What I have found in the United States that from doing the research is that the best certification in the US is from California Olive Oil Council, so COOC. And the problem that I have found, because I lived in California for 3 years, and what I have found is that a lot of these olive oil manufacturers sell it to restaurants. Not many of them make it to the retail stores like Whole Foods and, you know, Sprouts and whatever. So that's one of the challenges. But if you can find a small retailer that sells COOC approved olive oils, then that's a really great one. Another one that's interesting about organic is that organic is not a definition of everything. You can have an organic olive oil. That's great, right? So that's not, you know, let's not dismiss that. But that organic could also be 3-4 years old olive oil, right? And we want the freshness with the polyphenols. So the fifth criteria is the color of the bottle. You always want to have a dark bottle. If you see olive oil that's sold in transparent white bottles, not the best thing to be purchasing. And you can tell that manufacturer is not really serious about quality of olive oil. The sixth criteria is more of a question, should you be getting filtered or unfiltered? And the reason why I have these glasses here is because I wanted to show you the color of that olive oil. So let me see whether, you know, for many years, I was convinced that, I don't want to open the other ones because, yeah, I'm just going to pour this one. For many years, I was under the impression that a good olive oil has to be murky and unfiltered. And what I have discovered is that actually there is no conclusive research on this. And by the way, the California Olive Oil Council has an incredible research on it. I spent days researching olive oil there. And one of the things what I have learned is that filtered actually speeds up the fermentation process, and so it actually degrades the oil faster. And so, for example, the Sicilian olive oil manufacturer, what they do is that they spend some of the they filter it, they filter it, but they use what's called large sieve filters. So some of it gets, they're trying to find a balance where the oil doesn't get degraded too quickly, but at the same time, you're also keeping some of the polyphenols as many as possible in the olive oil. Let me do a little zoom on the color and see whether you can see. So this is what this oil looks like. I'm going to pour it back into the bottle, of course. So there isn't a, it isn't like light and sort of transparent and yellowish in color, right? It does have that green hue to it, which is beautiful. And it's somewhat transparent, but not fully. Part of the reason why I remember interviewing, people for about olive oil, and they said to me that a lot of times when people see unfiltered olive oil, they're scared. They think it's not palatable. So seeing it beautiful, transparent is much more attractive to purchase. Don't fall for that. It's actually, you want to have that not totally unfiltered, but that somewhere in between. And this is the color to go for. So then brings me to the next issue, and that is the color of the olive oil. Also, before I dove into doing all this research, and I want to share this with you today because I think it's so important. I don't know about you, but I always thought that the greener, the better. And so what I've discovered is definitely you don't want to use, so let's talk about a color of what color should be your olive oil. You definitely do not want to be buying those ones that are completely transparent and like pale yellow, because that's not how true olive oil looks. But you shouldn't be making a call just based on an olive oil that's green in color. Why? Because the crooked manufacturers of olive oil a lot of times add color to it, and they add substances to make it look murky, like as if it was unfiltered. So it's, the amount of trickery that goes in the food industry is mind-boggling. So those are the criteria that you can use. Now, in terms of I will, after having done some research, there's two brands that I think are pretty good to buy. One of them is Kirkland, and you can buy them in quite a lot of different health stores. And then the second brand is from Bragg's. So many of you know Bragg's, the apple cider vinegar, right? And so they have a whole line of other things now, including olive oil. And these two olive oils have actually passed even in California, the COOC approves these two brands. And so at least you are sure that it's not diluted with anything, okay? So those are pure olive oils. The reason why I went away from getting those oils, and I used to get Bragg's a lot, is because it doesn't have the same amount of freshness. It doesn't have the polyphenols. And, I'm kind of like, I want to put the best food, I want to have the best food possible. And not because I'm a food snob, but it's because it's got strong medicinal benefits that I want my body to benefit from. Okay, so I hope this is making sense. So let's take a look at. So the freshly pressed olive oil club, in case you haven't heard me talk about this, is the trial is $1 per bottle. And so you get a bottle of this beautiful oil that's otherwise worth $39. If you don't want to continue the membership, then just cancel it. Every quarter you get 3 bottles, and so it's like a bottle a month. I don't know about you, but like I go through a bottle like this every month easily as a single person who cooks a lot at home, and I eat it at home a lot. But if you're a family of 3 and 4, you're probably going to go through the bottles really quickly. You also have a choice of the smaller bottles So there's always an option if you don't cook as much. And the offer they've given us, it's until 15th of December. So the reason why that is so is because they need you to sign up so that you get the January shipment, which is this one here. I got the premature view, or the early view of the oils, and I just got it shipped this morning. They overnighted it to me. Okay, so why don't I just take a look at what are the questions that are coming in. So we have 2 questions from Denise. Can I cook on top of the stove with real EVOO? I love to saute veggies with in EVOO, but want to make sure the high quality EVOO can handle high heat, like the extra light EVOO can. So first of all, extra light is a really dodgy name for, and I bet you, Diane, if you do the test with the extra light EVOO, you're not gonna get this, and it's probably diluted. So let me talk about, so this is a really important question about cooking. For things like sauteing, so first of all, the burning point, the smoking point, of olive oil is 375. So it's perfectly fine. In Italy, cook with it all the time. You know, because it is a pretty expensive oil, I personally don't use it for cooking in that way. I would use things like even more stable oils, so things like, ghee or duck fat or lard. Those are my favorite to-gos. I don't use tallow because I think it's disgusting. It tastes horrible. And then what I'll do is because I really want the flavor, it just adds so much into your plate. Just that in itself is like, it can be just like the cherry, that just really pops, right? So I would drizzle that on top of my food. She's saying, I prefer to use light EVOO as the flavor isn't as strong. Is there anything like that with high quality EVOO? No, there isn't. So that's one of the things that is kind of interesting, is that I'm going to read you some of the comments we got because I promoted this in over summer, and so we got a lot of our Hormones Balance community sign up. So like almost 1,000 people signed up for membership. And then I followed up because I was really curious, how do you guys like it? And so we got a lot of very positive comments, and we got a couple of emails saying, this oil is terrible, it's bitter, it's so strong, I don't like it. Well, here's the thing. It's a little bit like if you grew up with eating Kraft cheese your whole life, and then you suddenly go to France and you have this incredible selection of these pungent, strong, multi-layered cheeses, right? It's going to be really intimidating. So I feel like with olive oil is the same way. Like if somebody says, I don't like this is too strong. I mean, there was somebody who even said this was horrible. Then it tells me that you've never used real olive oil before. So I would say just reduce the amount and focus on the medicinal benefits of it. Do they ship to Canada? I think they do not. And I'm so sorry. This is, again, the problem is that it's not like we don't want to take care of the Canadians. The problem is sending food overseas creates a lot of custom issues. And so that's what the issue is. I heard it's healthier to cook with only coconut oil. Is that true? No, it's not. I mean, put it this way. This is a question from Liz. If some of the longest living people in the world, look at them, right? Where are they from? Like if you look at the zones, the blue zones, Japan, Greece, Costa Rica, right? I mean, nobody's using coconut oil there, right? And so, no, that's absolutely not true. And coconut oil gives a very specific flavor, which is like, I love it in a certain context, like maybe with sweet potatoes or in desserts. But I wouldn't want to cook my steak or sauteed vegetables in coconut oil. It's just not my thing. I'd rather use ghee or tallow, not tallow, but ghee, which is clarified butter that doesn't contain any casein or lactose, is dairy-free. Or I use a duck fat, which is my favorite. For those of you who go to a French restaurant and you say, oh my God, the food was so amazing. It's a lot of the times the duck fat that makes a big difference. And it's actually quite easily available now at a lot of health stores. Okay, what other questions do we have coming in, Jean? Could you post them? And I've also written an article about what are the criteria. So in case you haven't watched the full video, you're more of a reader than the listener, then Jean, why don't we post the article URL for the 7 criteria to evaluate your olive oil, so you can have a quick reminder there. Somebody's asking about avocado oil. It's a good quality oil. It's also great for high heat kind of cooking, and it doesn't have any flavor to it. So correction, there's refined and unrefined avocado oil. The unrefined is pretty hard. Like it's pretty intense, like not in a good way. Like I personally use it in salads a couple of times and I was like, ooh, this is too much for me. So I do use the refined one sometimes for things like for cooking. So yes, so that's a good oil to use. Let's see, you mentioned 2 oil, how to write it, couldn't understand the name. I'm not sure what oils are you talking about. What do you think about organic Tunisian extra virgin olive oil at Trader Joe's? Shadi's asking. So, you guys are going to be asking a lot of like specific brand questions. So I'll go back to ask yourself the question, use the 7 criteria as a filtering process. So first of all, I personally do not shop at Trader Joe's because I feel like they do a lot of fudging with their labeling, and I don't consider that a really healthy place to go shopping. It's definitely better than, let's say, going, to Walmart, right? But it's not, to me, this is not a definition of really good quality oil. And, Shadi, it's like what I said at the beginning, how fresh is the oil? Do you know what's the manufacturing date, right? Those are the questions to ask. And, has it been, again, I mean, do they dilute or not? I don't know. I mean, how would I know, right? So, and so to me, it's like when I don't know, I'd rather go to places that I know I can trust. It's as simple as that. Okay, so I hope this was helpful. I'm curious, for those of you who are joining a little bit late, or if you're doing this on replay, I would encourage you to do the swirl, sniff, swallow, the sample and swallow method, and see what comes out for you, and leave us a comment. I will come on later in a couple of days and take a look at your comments, and if you have any questions, I'll answer those as well. Going into the weekend, I wish you a very happy weekend and relaxing weekend. Don't forget about doing some me care. We will talk a lot about that, doing some self-care stuff that really nurtures you and nourishes your soul and your body, and it's all going to be great for your hormones. All right, you guys, see you soon. Bye.